Of all the upsets that could have happened, we weren't that lucky.
There goes Davis! Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back! Auburn's going to win the football game!
Hello and welcome to this episode of War Eagle Weekly. How we doing, Josh?
I'm doing better than I have been after a loss, that's for sure, but it still stings.
Yeah, I could tell that you did not like that intro. You did not like what I had said right there, but nonetheless, it was true. I mean, it was a big upset weekend, and we couldn't get it done. So, it's just one of those things, unfortunately. But before we jump into this, don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your friends. We are available on anywhere you can get podcasts. We just started our audio only version as well on Spotify, Apple Podcast as well.
It's an exciting time.
Jump right into it, Josh. What's the biggest takeaway? I mean, of all the things that could have gone wrong, Peyton Thorne giving it away or causing issues was probably one of the ones that we could have thought of, right?
Well, I mean, I don't think he had the worst game. He didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. He made one incredibly glaring mistake that we're going to get to later on in the episode. But my biggest takeaway, it's now solidified that Auburn's defense is the best side of the ball in an Auburn uniform. I mean, Auburn's defense played the very best they possibly could. They held Georgia's running backs to a pretty decent number. It wasn't the greatest rushing output from Georgia. They still got yardage, but they did what they could, and offense just couldn't complement them, and it just ended up biting us in the butt. Jarquez Hunter had one hell of a game. He is easily our best player on the team, offense or defense.
He's one of the best players in the conference.
Yeah, in the country. I mean, you look at his yardage per carry. It's up there. I believe it's in the top 5 of the entire country. I could be wrong. I don't know, but still, he is our best player, and it just boggles my mind we're not giving it to him more than we are.
Now, Daryl Dappridge made a very good point. I believe it was him on the Locked On Auburn podcast. He mentioned the fact that we're so balanced and the fact that we have been hitting so many big plays this year could very well contribute to how frequently our running backs are busting big runs. And so, yes, I'm in the belief that let's run the ball more. But if we start getting to that mode of offense,
you become one-dimensional.
We become more one-dimensional. Teams are more ready for it. And again, Daryl made up a very good point. In this season, in moments where we had to get it, where we had to line up mano-a-mano and just see who could get the yard or two, Auburn has fallen short on that. And so if we become more predictable, I don't know if we'll have the same amount of success on the ground as we have been. So I love the sentiment. I love the idea, what you're saying. And I agree to it because I'd like to see it get, refuted first before we walk away from it. But it kind of feels like one of those things where the balance in this offense really does help our running backs exponentially.
I would agree, but at the same time, I mean, the college football landscape has changed so dramatically over the past decade or so. It was a run-first league, then it became a pass-first league, then it became an RPO league, and now it's a run-first league again. You can't change my mind. Your offense will flow through your running backs. Your running game will open up the passing game, and it feels like Auburn is trying to open up the running game by opening up the passing game first. It's not working. It's time to try something new.
Yeah. And I get it. I get it. And, like you said, you're a lot better spirits than what you previously were. Saturday night after the game, man, you had some really scathing messages to me. And you had some arguments I wouldn't say arguments, disagreements, strong vocalized disagreements between you and a couple of different people. Them being a little bit more on the vocal and more crazy side, should we say. But I feel like you definitely have calmed down quite a bit. And it's kind of where I am. Now, let's just first off, I don't think one play cost us this game.
No.
It was all the things. And I have other reasons why we lost this game in my mind. But let's just talk about the elephant in the room, and let's talk about that 4th and 1. Okay. I didn't catch this in the moment until you continued to push me and push back on what I was saying. It's 4th and 1. Jarquez is lined up behind Peyton Thorne. And Peyton Thorne begins to change the formation and audibles the play. Jarquez then moves off to his right. And then he goes and walks up to the line, talks to the right tackle, the right guard, one of those two, and then snaps the ball, and we get a read option. Josh, I'm gonna bring on the screenshot that we have here, and I apologize to our viewers. It's a little bit of a crude screenshot, but here it is. We're looking at the motion that should have happened. Hugh Freeze said in his post-game presser that they called a dive to the left.
To Jarquez, going to Jarquez.
And I got to say, it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is blocking what they're supposed to block, who they're supposed to block. Even if that linebacker up there behind the line starts to come down, we got KLS right there ready to crack a block, and it's only 1 yard. Jarquez Hunter is going to get that 1 yard. We saw what he did to the wannabe tackler on his 38-yard touchdown run. If you stick to the play that was called, that's a first down, and Auburn still has hope in this game. They're still down 2 scores at this point, but this is the play. This is the one play that took every bit of hope and breath out of Auburn's sails.
Now, I pointed this out to you when you first showed me the screenshot. The motion is already headed to the right in this screenshot, and you can see a majority of the linebackers are looking there to the right as well. So you would imagine that they would have been looking to the left if the motion was going to the left with Jarquez. So it's not going to be as wide open as the screenshot is giving it, and I'm not saying that it will. But you got to believe that Jarquez is going to pick that up, especially with how he was running in this game. I would also like to point out that you and I have both talked about the fact that when Xavier Miller goes out of the game, I don't believe 52 is Xavier Miller, right? Or 77?
I think 72
no, 77
is Xavier.
That's what I thought. But that's 52 right there in the game. We've mentioned how Peyton Thorne thinks less of the right backup right tackle than he does to Xavier Miller. Anytime Xavier Miller goes out, he seems to get a little bit more rattled and starts paying attention to that side of the field a little bit more. I got to say, if he changed that dude's blocking, look at the way that dude is just crushing his block. He completely sealed off that right end. So kudos to him. Okay, I want to give him credit. On top of that, if Jarquez knew what the play was, and Jarquez, whether it was a read option or not, Jarquez did not engage with this defensive end the way he should have. He half-assed it. You can go back and watch it. He half-assed it. Now, he was probably confused, didn't know what the heck was going on, why they called that. And I think had he engaged, that defensive end looked like he was a man on a mission. He probably would have still made the stop. And the other two linebackers are already headed that way. They would have got to Thorne before he got the 1 yard.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. But we got to see some, a little bit better play from Jarquez in that moment too. Yeah, he can be upset that he changed the play. Yeah, he didn't get the ball, but come on, just a little bit better blocking. But speaking of a little bit better blocking, another play that really got under your skin and my skin was another lack of blocking downfield.
Coleman. That's another 15 plus yards if Cam Coleman makes that block. For whatever reason, I don't know if this is Cam Coleman, second thinking his.
Let's set this play up, and to those that don't know what we're talking about, I believe it was the second quarter, or was it the early of the third quarter?
It was in the second half.
Okay, I think it was early in the third quarter. Peyton Thorne pulls it down and starts yelling at Cam Coleman to block, and Cam Coleman kind of starts to look like he's going that way, and then he just pulls up. Go ahead. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's Cam Coleman getting in his own head about his shoulder injury and not wanting to make it any worse than it already is, because he is definitely not 100%, and you can't convince me otherwise. But either way, you got to get a hand on that guy to allow your quarterback to make a play, get more yardage. I mean, if he gets that block, even gets a hand on him, that's an extra 5-7 yards. But
Yeah.
Peyton Thorne had to pull up early because he was going to get his knees taken out. But regardless, you gotta show better effort. You're not gonna stay on the field if you're not gonna prove to your teammates you have their back. And Cam Coleman did not have his teammates back there. Again, I don't want to harp too much onto it because he is still dealing with an injury. But regardless, you got to get a hand on him.
Yeah, if you're well enough to be out there running routes and playing, you should be able to lay that block and be willing to lay that block. And so I agree. Now he's a freshman. See, these are the things that people don't quite understand. The Thorne defenders, which you were for a little bit. You're not now, but you were. He is a fifth-year senior. And so if these freshmen are out there making mistakes, we're on a completely different level as far as criticism goes. You were critical of Cam Coleman just now, but again, he's a freshman and he's learning and he's dealing with an injury. Peyton Thorne has made countless mistakes this year that are just unexcusable from a fifth-year senior. Malcolm Simmons dropped a touchdown, a beautifully thrown ball from Peyton Thorne, little under, but nonetheless, the defender didn't get it, and Malcolm Simmons had his hands on the ball, and he let it go through his fingers. So, again, these are not all these one single plays are not going to change the outcome of the game unless you start stacking them up, okay? We're not saying one play lost this game, but there were several contributing factors, several issues. I want to get to what happened in the first half because everybody's focusing on the second half and the mistakes that were made and where we fell short. But I want to point out the first half. What was Percy Lewis doing?
Oh my God, dude. I cannot believe he was still in the game after halftime. I know he's in a completely new system than he was last year. He was at Mississippi State last year, and this is his first year at Auburn. But regardless, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for 2+ years. You should know what your assignment is as the starting left tackle. You should know what the snap count is as a starting left tackle. You should not let your one guy. He was responsible for one guy, and that one guy was constantly beating the ever-living shit out of him off the line. It was embarrassing.
And then when he wasn't beating him, Percy Lewis was getting called for a false start, illegal man downfield. It was constant. He was making mistakes left and right. This dude is the NIL evaluation on him is about $300,000. I don't know if he got that. I have no indication that he got that. But however they come up with these NIL valuations is whatever it is. And apparently he is one of the highest paid players on this team. And he did that on Saturday against our biggest opponent up to this point in the season. And it's just uncalled for. Another issue in the first half, I'm going to lay this at the coach's feet. Okay? I have an issue with how conservative and how laid back the play calling was. How they went out there in the first half and was like, I don't want to lose this game. Instead of, how can I win this game? Against Oklahoma, they came out firing, man. They looked good. And I get it. It's the first game on the road. You don't know how the team is going to react. Peyton Thorne constantly gives the ball away. But in this kind of game, you got nothing to lose. Why be that conservative on offense? They were very conservative. They called a completely different game in the second half. And although we fell short in the second half, I feel like we looked better offensively in the second half.
We did. And I do have some gripes about the second half and the clock management in the second half, especially the fourth quarter. But you brought up Oklahoma, which was what I was going to bring up. I mean, Auburn slowed it down dramatically against Oklahoma. They were making bigger plays than they were all season, but they slowed it down. They slowed it down, which I think that's what they were trying to do, get the run game more involved, which they did in the first half. And they were trying to open up the passing game. And I feel like they did that to an extent, but I agree with you. It was far too conservative to score points.
They looked lethargic. Exactly. They were like, hey, we're going to play, the yardage game. We're going to play,
Yeah, they came out in the first half they're playing to not lose the game. They weren't playing to win the game. And I agree with you on that.
Which again, if they had come out there, balls to the walls, throwing the ball, looking super aggressive, and Peyton Thorne starts turning it over or we start fumbling, we're critical of that too. Okay, so I don't know if the coaches are in a win-win or I'm in a lose-lose situation there. But I'm going to be critical because you had this momentum from the Oklahoma game and how good we looked against a stellar defense, who I think the Oklahoma defense is better than the Georgia defense personally. But they just weren't. But let's get to the clock management issues that you were wanting to talk about in the second half.
In the fourth quarter, I don't know what Hugh was thinking. In the fourth quarter, the game was still sort of in reach before everything turned to shit. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know why he continued to slow it down and take it slow. But that's when you need to enact the 2-minute drills. You need to get your offense moving. You got to get the Georgia defense tired. You can't just walk up to the line, allow them to get fully set before you snap the damn ball. No, you want to catch them off guard. And nowhere in the game did we catch Georgia off guard.
No, yeah, that's true. But to their defense, and like you said, they slowed the game down for Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne doesn't do great when having to think quickly, and they were trying to avoid those situations. And had they gone fast, that's exactly what it would have been. And so I can understand their hesitancy on offense, but it got a little crazy and it got a little too slow in my mind. And so I agree with you. I think they should have sped it up a little bit, but I don't know if hurry up would have been the answer because I think Peyton Thorne definitely would have made a bigger mistake than the fourth.
I was mainly talking about the walking up to the line after the ball was dead, going to the next snap, and the fact that there was just no sense of urgency from literally anybody on the field at all. You can have a sense of urgency and still keep your composure.
100% agree with you. And that's what I was saying. I apologize I didn't come across that way, but that's what I was saying. I was agreeing with you in that sense. But I also have a little bit to say about the defensive side of the play clock management. Georgia is driving. Now I have a theory as to why they did it this way, and it sucks, but I think ultimately it was just one of those things that we just have to live with right now. Hugh Freeze had timeouts in his back pocket, and on that long Georgia drive, we didn't use them. He was probably wanting to save them for the offense and probably wanted to think, oh, we'll be able to get off of it. Or he sat there and looked at that and said, we're letting Georgia drive. Our defense is tired. Whether I give them a timeout right here or not, Georgia is still going to convert this. Georgia is still going to pick this up. Georgia is still going to drive this ball down.
Now, you can't.
If that was his mentality, and he gave up on the game, then that's a bigger issue. But I hope it was more of the fact that he was trying to save it for offense. But even still, at that point, it was out of reach, and he should have used the timeouts more. The defense, I texted you. This was the first time this year that this defense looked worn out and tired in the fourth quarter. That last drive of Georgia's was 100% them. They had already given everything they had. I think Keldrick Falk was down. They haven't said anything as to why he was down on the field, but it looked like it was a cramp, right?
I'm pretty sure it was his knee, which is why number 7 on Georgia went for his knees on that the illegal block, which was one of the dirtiest plays I've seen on the season from any team.
We talked about that. So, the thing is, it was disappointing. It felt like the whole week I was very adamant that we weren't going to win it. And then as we got closer to game time, I let hope seep its way back in, and it's the hope that kills you. But at no point in this game, in the second half, did I think Auburn was in a position to win the game. Unfortunately,
I did before we did not convert that fourth and one. Like I said, that took all wind out of Auburn's sails and just ruined any hope of a comeback.
Yep. So We are going to be discussing in a future video what we can do coming out of the bye week, what we can do to rectify the situation, what the coaching staff should be doing with the players that are playing. So make sure you stick around and watch that video when we release it. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that way you are notified when we release this video. All in all, Josh, it could have been a lot worse against Georgia. We look like we have been making steady improvements as the year goes on. We have now put together 2 games where, for the most part, we have not been careless, overly careless with the ball. And so with that big bombshell that is dropped on us now, War Eagle.
War damn Eagle, man.